So this week I've got a pretty cool trick for an effect I saw over on the Fox website, actually for the show Fringe. It was actually kind of a cool graphic. It had these just columns of kind of shadows, almost like it was split up into these columns. But here's a kind of a cool trick to kind of get that look, but being able to switch out the images without cutting up the image, but being able to do it through the use of layer styles. So all I'm going to do is, I've got this image here. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new blank layer. And I'm just going to go over here into the toolbar and go ahead and use the rectangular marquee tool. I'm just going to draw a column anywhere on the image layout. So that'll work. That'll look good right there. And I'm just going to give that selection a base color fill. I'm just going to press Shift Delete and just give it a 50% gray fill, normal, 100%. Okay. And we'll go ahead and deselect. You can, of course, do this with a shape layer as well. So you can either use shape layers or standard pixel layers. It really doesn't matter because the layer styles will apply to both. Now with this layer deselected, I'm going to go into the layer style menu and go over here and choose outer glow. We're not going to do drop shadow because we want the glow or the shadow to be on both sides of the graphic, which you can actually do. You can actually do a drop shadow and just set the distance to 0 and then just increase the size and it will go out both ways. But I like the way the glow gives me a little bit sharper edge. So I'm going to go ahead and select outer glow and change its color from white, which is the default, to black. And we'll click OK. Now, we can't see the effect right away because, by default, the blend mode for the outer glow is set to screen, which will only show the lighter areas. And in the case of black, it'll make it invisible altogether. So let's go ahead and change this to multiply. And now you can see we're getting that kind of glow, shadowy effect off this shape. Now, before we click out of the layer style panel here, we're going to go up into the blending options right up here at the very top of the panel on the left side. And inside of here, we're going to go to the advanced blending section and simply take the fill opacity down to 0. And what this does is, what makes it different from the opacity setting just above is that the fill opacity affects only the original pixels on the layer, which will leave the layer style completely visible, whereas the opacity will adjust the opacity of everything on the layer, including the layer style. But in this case, I just want to make the pixels invisible, leaving just the style itself. So there I can see I'm getting a shape that I can see through, but I'm also getting that drop shadow effect, and it looks nice and neat. All right, so go ahead and click OK. And now I've got my shape. Now all I'm going to do here is take this shape and just make duplicates of it. So you're going to grab the Move tool, and if you just Option Drag, you'll notice when you hold down the Option key or Alt if you're on Windows, you get this double arrow. When I click and drag, I'm actually going to add the Shift key as I do this, so it constrains my movement left to right. And I'm just going to add and randomly place these bars. You even kind of overlap them in certain areas. And you can see it gives me this kind of interesting divided bar effect. And you notice the shadow effect almost kind of gives it the illusion that there's multiple planes here, like parts of the image are a little bit higher than others. But in actuality, we have done nothing to the original image itself. It is merely giving us that hint of that effect just by all these different bars with the layer style that we've applied to them. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. And I certainly could add more or do anything else with it. In fact, let's add one more down here at the other end, just so it kind of, and you can even, you know, whether it's a shape layer or a pixel layer, you can even distort the shape. If I make this one wider, and gives me kind of an interesting result there. So a lot of different possibilities. And of course, you can go in and change the color of the shadow as well to get a different effect altogether, which we'll show in just a minute. But going back to what I was talking about, this effect, I mean, ordinarily, when I looked at the original, I was thinking that maybe I'm going to have to make selections of parts of the image and then cut those away onto a new layer and then apply the layer style. But that isn't necessary to do. And it's a little time consuming, and worse than that, once it's done, you've only got it for that one image. But let's say you've gone through all this process and you want to do it to another image, but you don't want to go through all those steps again. Well, I'm simply going to take all of these layers that I've created here and select them all. I'm just going to hold the Shift key down and select every layer and then place them in a group. I'm not going to merge them together because I want to maintain the editability of these layer styles, but I also want to keep them together in one single unit. So let's go into the flyout menu here in the Layers panel. And we'll go ahead and choose New Group from Layers. And we can give it a name if you like, but who has that kind of time? And there I can see now all those elements are contained in a group, and I can now drag and drop it as a single unit into another image. For instance, if I grab this one here, so just to show you how you're able to use this on multiple images, I'm just going to go and grab that layer group, drag it over to this layer, or to this new image, and again, holding the Shift key down so it drops it in the middle, and there I can see my bars. Now I'm just going to scale it a little bit so we can get those edges outside. But now I've got that very same effect going on this image. It gives, again, giving me the illusion that it's kind of split apart and raised in certain areas to give that illusion of depth. But all the while, it's on a single layer. Now, of course, there are a number of other things you can do with this effect. You know, I mean, this looks great. It's giving me similar effect to that one I saw on the website. But then here's where you start to think, well, what else can I do with this? Where do you go from here? And just to give you an idea, as I was playing around with this effect, I started thinking, you know what? It kind of looks like it could be, you know, some interesting light beams or something like that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this layer. In fact, let's go ahead and fill this background layer with black so you can see what's going on. Well, no, I'll just do gray. Now there's our bars. Now what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and merge all of these together. So just select them all, press Command D. It merges them all into a single layer, thus rendering the layer style, which in this case is that outer glow effect. But now I'm going to lock the transparency of this layer. Let's actually scale it in a little bit here. There we go. I'm going to lock the transparency and then fill this layer with white. So ultimately, it's going to give me an effect of all those beams being in white. But here's another cool part. Let's actually take our image that we're going to use here. It's a little bit large. Let's actually make it a little small for our purposes here. But here we have those beams, and they're merged together on a single layer. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and put it in free transform mode. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and crop it so we can get rid of those edges. You can see if I move this up, you can see we still got the original edges there. Don't need those. So let's do a select all and just go under image and go and choose crop. So now those are gone. So I'm going to put these lines in free transform mode. Just press Command or Control T, and I'm just going to go into the flyout menu here. Just right click or control click on it and choose perspective. And then we're going to take the top area. I'm just going to grab either one of the top corner handles and push it in. So we get those beams just kind of coming out from a center mark there. And just press enter. Now what I'm going to do is go under 3D, and this is an extended only feature, so if you have extended you can do this. Go under 3D and go and choose new 3D postcard from layer. Puts those light beams in a three-dimensional space. So if I go over here and grab the 3D object rotate tool, I can rotate this around in 3 dimensions. And thus we're getting kind of a light beam effect. So what if we do, or what if we take it over to our working file here, again, drag and drop over, holding the Shift key down. And now what I can do, because this is a light beam and it's giving me a 3D effect, I can actually rotate this around. And again, using the 3D object rotate tools, rotate this around in 3D and position it just right. And if I just move it right up here, I can get an enhanced light beam effect kind of emanating out of this subject here, or the light that's behind her. Oh, something like that. I can go ahead and duplicate the layer and go ahead and rotate that around as well. And then just reposition it the same way. We're moving it in 3D space, so it's giving me that realistic 3D movement. And once again, just rotate it around. And then we'll just kind of put it right back there. And there we have our light beams. Now to enhance it even more so, just simply change the blend mode of these 3D layers from normal to overlay, and it will interact with the background, thus giving us a very cool light effect coming from out of behind the subject, enhancing that light effect that much further. So we've gone from just creating a simple split beam or split shadow effect here that was inspired by a website, but then taking it a step further and then using it in a way you might have perhaps not have thought of by making it a 3D object and then creating a very interesting light beam effect. So pretty interesting stuff to play with simple shapes and layer styles.